Before we begin, I want to take a moment to honor the cultures behind the stories we are about to explore. The tales shared here come from many peoples, lands, and traditions. I do not change these stories to fit modern expectations or to align with today's social standards. Instead, I present them as they were told, sometimes beautiful, sometimes harsh, sometimes challenging. We are not here to judge the past, but to understand it, to listen, to learn, and to honor the ancestors who carried these stories forward. We also share stories from various religious traditions. These are presented in their historical and spiritual context, with respect for their beliefs that they represent. Every culture deserves respect, context, and acknowledgement, and this space is dedicated to doing exactly that. August 24th, The Night Fire. Story 1, The Fire Hidden in the Fish. There came a time in the Finnish, Kalevala, when darkness did not merely fall for a night. The lights themselves disappeared. Louhi, mistress of the northern realm, Pohjola, captured the sun and moon and concealed them within a mountain. And the fire of Kalevala vanished as well. Houses that had once gathered around warm hearths became cold. The familiar rhythm of daylight ceased. Even the great sky god, Ukko, looked into the darkness and wondered where the heavenly lights had gone. Unable to find them, Ukko struck fire in the heavens and created a new spark, a tiny fire child, entrusted it to a maiden of the air who rocked it within a celestial cradle. The little flame was meant to become new light for a world that had lost its own, but fire has never been famous for obedience. The spark slipped from its keeper's hands. It tore downward through the heavens, flashing through the clouds and falling toward the darkened earth below. Vainamoinen, the ancient singer and wisdom hero, saw the strange light falling from above and set out with the divine smith, Ilmarinen, to discover what it was. They learned that the runaway flame had traveled violently across land before plunging into the waters of Lake Alua. The lake boiled around it. Fish scattered through the suddenly heated water until one fish swallowed the flame. But fire could not simply become food. The fish began twisting in agony from the heat inside its belly, and then something wonderfully strange happened. Another fish swallowed the first one. The burning continued. Then a great gray pike swallowed that fish in turn. The heavenly spark can now disappear beneath water, hidden inside a fish, inside another fish, inside yet another fish, while the world above remained dark. Vainamoinen and Ilmarinen therefore prepared to fish for something no ordinary net had ever been asked to catch. They made a great net of flax and dragged the waters, searching among pike, salmon, trout, and smaller fish for the creature carrying the lost flame. Their first attempts failed. They enlarged the net and returned. Finally, the great pike was caught and brought ashore. When it was opened, the smaller fish was discovered inside it. Inside that fish was another, and within the deepest body they found a blue ball wrapped around a scarlet one. When the coverings were opened, there it was, the fire that had fallen from heaven. But even recovered fire remained fire. The flame burst free, scorching Vainamoinen and burning Ilmarinen's face and hands before racing wildly across the landscape, igniting trees and fields. Vainamoinen pursued it until at last he found the fire child hiding beneath the remains of the forest, and the wandering flame was finally brought under control and carried back toward the cold homes of Kalevala. The sun and moon had not yet returned. That matters. The great lights of the world were still missing when the people recovered fire. They could not command the sun to rise. They could not force the moon out of the mountain. But somewhere, inside the impossible darkness, a smaller light had survived, concealed beneath water and flesh in layers no one could see from the surface. They searched for it anyway, and when they found it, the darkness was no longer absolute. The hearths could burn again before the heavens themselves were repaired. That is why this old Finnish story belongs to the night fire. Sometimes the light that belongs to you will not look like daylight. It may be buried so deeply that even you wonder whether it still exists. But hidden is not extinguished. Somewhere beneath everything that swallowed it, the fire may still be burning. Story 2. Mahuika and the fire hidden in the trees. There was a time when the people possessed fire because the fires of their homes were carefully kept alive. At night, the embers were covered. In the morning, they were uncovered and fed until flames rose again. Because if every fire were allowed to die, another would have to be obtained from the ancient source from which fire itself had come. And Maui, clever Maui, restless Maui, the one who was never satisfied simply knowing that something worked when he might discover why, began wondering where fire truly lived. So one night, while his people slept, Maui went from hearth to hearth and extinguished the flames. He stomped out the fires. He scattered the embers. He made certain that not one glowing coal remained. When morning came, the people awoke to cold hearths and great frustration. Maui offered to journey in search of new fire. He went to the dwelling of his ancestress, Mahuika, the powerful guardian of fire, whose sacred flame lived within her own body. Maui told her that the fires of the human world had gone out and asked her to give him fire again. Mahuika loved her descendant, and so she reached toward one of her hands and drew fire from one of her fingernails. She gave the burning nail to Maui and sent him home. But Maui had not come merely to carry fire back. He wanted its secret. Away from Mahuika's sight, he extinguished the flame and returned. "The fire has gone out," he told her. Mahuika gave him another fiery nail. Maui destroyed that flame too. Again he returned. Again she gave. Finger after finger, flame after flame. Maui continued until Mahuika began to understand that this was no accident. Still he asked. Still she surrendered pieces of her own fire, until the flames of her fingers were gone and Maui began taking the fire of her toes as well. At last Mahuika had only one sacred flame remaining. Now her generosity became fury. Maui had not simply lost what she gave him. He had deceived her again and again, wasting the fire she carried within herself. Mahuika tore away her final fiery nail and hurled it toward the earth. Suddenly, Maui's game became something far more dangerous. Fire leapt outward. The ground burned. The forest caught. Flames chased Maui through the land until the trickster, who had deliberately extinguished every safe fire, now found himself surrounded by far more fire than he could control. Maui fled and called upon the powers of the weather for help. Rain descended. The great blaze hissed beneath the water. Mahuika's flame began dying across the earth. But the last fire did not vanish. Before the rain could extinguish everything, the remaining sparks fled into certain trees. They entered the wood and hid there. The kaikomako and other trees received Mahuika's fire and held it silently within themselves. When the rain ended, someone looking across the wet forest would have seen no flame at all, no glowing coal, no pillar of smoke. The fire appeared to be gone. But from that time forward, people no longer needed to depend entirely upon an ember preserved from yesterday's hearth. They learned that by taking the proper woods and working them together through friction, they could summon Mahuika's fire from its hiding place. Fire could be awakened from inside the tree. And there is something extraordinary burning inside that old story Maui went searching because he wanted to know where fire came from. And the answer he finally discovered was stranger than a distant volcano or a flame guarded behind some celestial gate. Fire had found a way to become invisible. A tree could stand through rain and darkness looking utterly cold while carrying the possibility of flame inside its body. Years might pass, storms might soak its branches, night might cover the entire forest. Still, the fire waited within the wood until knowledgeable hands knew how to call it forward. That is the secret Mahuika's final flame left to the human world. What cannot be seen is not necessarily gone. Some fires survive by learning how to hide. Story 3. the Bulgae, fire gods of the Dark Kingdom. Far beyond the familiar world, there was said to be a kingdom swallowed in darkness, a place where neither the sun nor the moon gave its people light. It was called Gamang, the Dark Country, and its ruler looked upward toward the brilliant heavens and desired what his own kingdom did not possess. Above him burned two lights, beyond anything hidden in this realm, the golden sun crossing the day and the pale moon ruling the night. In the Dark Country, if the Dark Country had no light of its own, the king decided, then he would take theirs. And so he summoned the Bulgae, the monstrous fire dogs of his kingdom, powerful hounds sent racing out of the darkness with an impossible command: seize the sun and bring it home. One of the great dogs bounded upward until at last it reached the blazing disk. It opened its jaws and bit the sun. For the people watching from the earth below, something terrifying happened. The light began disappearing. A black wound seemed to spread across the face of the sun, as though some unseen creature were devouring it piece by piece. Daylight weakened, shadows changed, the ordinary order of heaven faltered, but the king of darkness had misunderstood the thing he coveted. The sun could be bitten, but it could not simply be possessed. It was unbearably hot, even for a fire dog. The Bulgae could not hold it in its mouth. Burned by the celestial flame, the creature released its jaws and the sun escaped. Light returned to the world. The dog came back to its king without the prize it had been commanded to steal. But the ruler of Gamang was not finished. If the sun burned too fiercely to carry, perhaps the moon would be easier. He sent another Bulgae into the heavens at night. Again the great hound reached the celestial light. Again its jaws closed. This time darkness began eating into the moon. Yet the moon presented the opposite problem. Rather than burning the dog's mouth, it was said to be too cold to hold. The Bulgae released it as well, and the moon returned to its fullness. Still the king persisted. Again and again the fire dogs were sent after the heavenly lights, and whenever one of them managed to seize the sun or moon between its teeth, people looking upward witnessed an eclipse. For a little while darkness appeared to win. The sun became black. The moon disappeared behind shadow. Something enormous seemed capable of reaching into heaven and swallowing the very lights upon which the world depended. But the Bulgae could never finish the theft. The light always escaped their jaws. The image at the heart of the story is wonderfully unsettling because the Bulgae themselves are creatures of fire. Darkness does not send something cold and empty after the sun. It sends another fire. Yet possessing flame does not give the dogs ownership over every light they encounter. The sun remains itself. The moon remains itself. Each can disappear from human sight without actually ceasing to exist. An eclipse therefore becomes a perfect story for the night fire, because anyone standing beneath one without knowing its duration might believe the light was being destroyed. The sky itself seems to prove it. Day becomes strange twilight. The brilliant disk is consumed. Yet somewhere behind that impossible darkness, the sun is still burning exactly as it did before. Being covered is not the same as being extinguished. Being bitten is not the same as belonging to the thing that bit you. And even when darkness closes its jaws around the light, darkness cannot necessarily keep what it has taken. Eventually, the Bulgae must release their grip. The shadow moves, the edge brightens, the sun returns, the moon emerges. And the people beneath the sky discover that the light they thought they had lost never stopped being light at all. Story 4. Tjáhtje and the Secret Fire Beneath the Earth. There was a time, Samoan tradition tells us, when people ate their food raw because fire did not yet belong to the human world. The secret of it lay below the earth, where Mahuika, powerful being associated with earthquakes and fire, guarded knowledge humans did not possess. But a young hero named Tjáhtje would discover that secret because his father, Talanga, had been doing something mysterious. Again and again, Talanga disappeared beneath the earth, and Tjáhtje became determined to learn where he went. One day he secretly followed him down into the world below, where Tjáhtje found his father working in the presence Mafuia. And more importantly, he saw something almost unimaginable. Fire. Food could be placed over it and transformed. Heat could be summoned instead of merely endured beneath the sun. Here was a power hidden beneath the feet of people who did not yet know how to create it for themselves. Tete wanted that knowledge carried upward. Mafuia, however, had no intention of simply handing over his secret, and the encounter became a contest of strength. The old firekeeper seized Tete, and Tete seized him back. They wrestled violently beneath the earth, their struggle becoming connected, in Samoan tradition, with the trembling of the ground itself. Mafuia was immensely powerful, but Tete would not release him. He twisted one of Mafuia's arms. It broke. Still, Tete demanded the secret of fire. He broke another. The struggle continued until Mafuia realized his human challenger might destroy him completely. Finally offered knowledge in exchange for mercy. He would show Tete where fire lived and how people could obtain it without traveling into the underworld. The secret was astonishing because the flame was not kept in some golden vessel or guarded forever inside a volcanic cavern. Fire was hidden within trees. Mafuia named particular woods from which people could summon flame by rubbing pieces together, drawing heat from friction until smoke appeared and the sleeping fire awakened. Tete carried this knowledge back into the human world. From then onward, people could cook their food rather than eating everything raw. Yet Mafuia had one final request. His body had been badly broken in the wrestling match, and he begged Tete to leave him at least one limb from which to support himself. Tete agreed. Samoan tradition then connected Mafuia's remaining strength with earthquakes. When the being beneath the earth shifts or shakes, what remains to him? The land above trembles. The story leaves humanity with fire, but it also leaves fire attached to something deeper and less controllable beneath the world. People may learn how to call flame from wood, but the being who once guarded it secretly has not vanished. The earth can still move. The hidden world can still remind the surface that it exists. And perhaps that is what makes Tete's fire such a fitting final flame for the night fire. By the time the hero returned home, humans possessed something they could not necessarily see when they looked at a tree. The trunk appeared to contain wood and nothing more. No flame danced across its bark. No ember glowed beneath its surface. Rain could fall upon it. Darkness could surround it. Years could pass while the trees stood, apparently without fire at all. Yet the knowledge Tete carried told people otherwise. Take the right wood, work it correctly. Continue when nothing seems to happen. Heat will gather, smoke will appear, and then, suddenly, the hidden flame answers. Tete did not bring humanity a fire that had to burn forever. He brought something stranger. The knowledge that even after the visible flame disappears, the possibility of fire can remain inside the world, waiting for hands that remember how to call it back. Daily Thread for August 24th. What light is mine alone? There's a particular kind of darkness that arrives when the lights we depended upon are no longer available to us. Not ordinary night, because ordinary night promises morning. This is the darkness that comes when a person, place, belief, relationship, plan, or certainty that once illuminated the road suddenly cannot. The night fighter asks what happens when we can no longer borrow our light from somewhere else. Today began in Finland, where the Kalevala imagined a world in which the sun and moon themselves had disappeared. The great lights were gone, and even fire had vanished from human homes. Yet somewhere beneath the darkness, beneath the water, beneath one creature swallowed by another and another, a tiny celestial flame was still burning. Väinämöinen and Ilmarinen could not immediately restore the sun. They could not command the moon back into the sky. They found something smaller instead. They recovered fire. And before the heavens were repaired, human beings could warm their homes again. Sometimes we do not need enough light to illuminate the entire world. We need enough to illuminate the next room. Mahuika's fire takes the idea deeper. Maui's curiosity and deception nearly destroyed the visible flame altogether, until the last sparks escaped into the trees. Afterward, someone looking at the forest sees wood, bark, branches, leaves, no fire. Yet the flame is there. Human beings simply have to learn how to call it forward. The Korean Bulgae give darkness teeth. The fire dogs race from their dark kingdom and close their jaws around the sun and moon. And for a terrifying moment, the light actually disappears. But an eclipse teaches something that cannot be understood by appearance alone. What you cannot see may still be shining. The sun does not stop burning because something passes between it and you. The moon has not ceased to exist because shadow covers its face. Darkness can interrupt our relationship with light without possessing the light itself. And finally, Tjáhtje descends beneath the earth and discovers that fire has been hidden there all along. After wresting its secret from Mahuika, he returns knowing that people will no longer have to preserve one visible flame forever. The knowledge itself has become kind of fire. The right wood always carries possibility within it. Friction, patience, and practiced hands can call the flame back. 4 stories then, and every one of them asks us to reconsider what it means for light to disappear. Lost is not always gone. Hidden is not always extinguished. Covered is not destroyed. And darkness is not proof that there is nothing left to find. That brings us to tonight's question. What light is mine alone? Strip away the applause for a moment. Strip away the person who believes in you most. Strip away the title, the job, the relationship, the followers, the compliments, the expectations, even the version of yourself you learned to perform because it made other people comfortable. What remains illuminated when nobody else is holding the torch? Maybe it is something almost embarrassingly small, a fascination you have carried since childhood, a story you still want to tell, a place you still want to see, the way you care for animals, the urge to create something with your hands, a belief you reach through your own experience, a question you cannot stop asking, a private promise about the kind of person you want to be. That light matters precisely because nobody else can manufacture it for you. Other people can encourage it, challenge it, misunderstand it, nurture it, or stand between you and it for a while. But there is a difference between the light people shine on us and the light that originates within us. The first feels wonderful, but it can disappear when circumstances change. Second may become tiny, may hide beneath years of ash, may become difficult to see beneath grief, exhaustion, rejection, responsibility, or fear. But today's story suggests that perhaps we should stop asking only, why isn't my fire still blazing? An ember does not fail because it is not a bonfire. Maybe the better question is whether there is still heat. Put your hand near the place where the dream used to be. Look beneath what covered it. Notice what keeps returning when nobody tells you to return to it. Notice what you would still care about if nobody ever congratulated you for caring. That may be your night fire. And tonight, you do not have to make it enormous. Do what the old stories do. Search for it. Protect it. Learn what feeds it. Learn what smothers it. Learn which pieces of your life hold fire even when they appear ordinary. Because eventually there will be nights when someone else's torch cannot reach you. There will be eclipses. There will be lost suns. There will be moments when the path disappears beyond the few feet directly in front of you. You do not need to become daylight in those moments. You only need enough of your own light to take the next step. The night fire does not ask whether everyone else can see you shining. It asks something far more private. When the whole world goes dark, do you still know where your fire lives?